Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be creating a newsletter with ChatGPT. Before we get started, we want to really understand a couple things. One is that as you give the AI an instruction, it will try to carry that instruction out to the fullest extent it can. So if you start, like I did just a second ago with a video, and I asked it to create a newsletter, it created a newsletter. It gave facts that weren't relatable to my life, that weren't really connected to me. So before we go to the process of having it write the newsletter or help us to formulate how to write the newsletter, we need to have a conversation with the AI to give it the information of what we want our own input to be in the newsletter. So we're going to ask it to create a prompt that's going to ask us questions about what we want in the newsletter. That way, then when we start to going to create it, it has the appropriate context for what we're doing. I'm going to be creating this prompt using the AI, and I'm going to be using the dictate feature to talk it in and have it give us the feedback. Hey, ChatGPT, can you help me create a prompt to gather the information to create a newsletter? I want you to ask me questions and really get the information of what I want each component to look like and how I want you to formulate it before we begin to move into the newsletter writing process. As you can see here, it's created this prompt, and now I'm going to go ahead and have it execute the process of creating the prompt. So it's not going to start asking me questions. It's going to create a prompt that I'm going to re-plug into the ChatGPT to help us gather that information. As you can see here, it has given us a list. There's 1, the core purpose; 2, your people; 3, the personal story; 4, content or event updates; 5, news or tool spotlight; 6, the call to action; 7, design and formatting presence. These are all great things to consider as you're creating this newsletter. So I'm going to just go ahead and say, start walking me through these questions and answer them as we go along. Start walking me through all of these questions and let me answer them as we go along. So now it's going to start gathering that information. What is the main purpose of this newsletter? Few options to consider: building trust, nurturing your audience, sharing a personal breakthrough, launching something, teaching a concept, showcasing your AI training, or something else entirely. The purpose for my newsletter is I want to give people an update on the last webinar training that I did, how well it went, and how many people showed up. Second, I want to showcase a new tool that ChatGPT has rolled out called the study mode. And 3, I want to give a little devotional encouragement to my audience. As it's walking through the questions, I gave it that first section. Now it's asking for the second. The core purpose continued. What emotional tone do you want to strike in the newsletter? I'm going to just copy and paste practical and focused with a brief inspiration because I like that tone. Let's talk about who is this for. Your newsletter doesn't go into the void. It lands in boxes belonging to real people. Let's meet them. My audience currently has faith or spiritual background, so I'm going to copy that in there. And then it's saying then I'm going to dictate in why they might be curious about AI or spiritual growth right now. My audience is primarily curious on how they can use AI to help them write newsletters, how to be able to speed up this process of both creating them from ones that they've already done and ones that they have never created a newsletter before. So I'm going to take that and answer that second question. 2, your people continued. Let's get even more specific. Pick any that apply or feel true to the audience you're willing. So they are mostly Christian content creators and pastor ministry leaders, churches staff trying to keep up with tech. And so I'm going to copy those 2 sections in and say, those are primarily my audience. So then it's asking the last part, what's the one thing you hope your readers walk away with after reading this? Here's a menu of possibilities. Feel free to pick a few or reword. I think I'm going to take these 2 sections. I'm not behind. I'm just getting started, and Josh really gets me. I want to keep learning from him. I'm going to copy those 2 in and go ahead and add that to it. Now it's going on to section 3. Even in a practical newsletter, a brief moment of humanity goes a long way. So, is there a short personal story, metaphor, or visual moment you'd like to include that ties into this issue? Something like a moment before the webinar started while you felt nervous or unsure. Now I'm going to go ahead and give it a little snippet of what the personal story that I want to share. I'm going to be taking a little bit gleaning from the first example and go ahead and expand on it, and I'm going to dictate that in now. One of the main things that surprised me that I want to share as a personal story is the shift between having 2 or 3 people in a webinar to having over 10 people. And that shift was the amount of feedback and information that I was getting from the audience was really high when I had a couple people. But when we went to have a larger group, it was really hard to understand what the people were thinking, what the examples they wanted to use, and how to really formulate the next step. And so as I went through that process, I realized I needed to come up with better, stronger examples before I joined the webinar, and also figure out how to ask the right questions and draw the audience out. This made me feel a little tentative and nervous, and maybe came across not as strong as I wanted to, and really helped me understand that there's still some things that I needed to learn and grow as I was doing these webinars. So I gave it this giant paragraph of information. That's probably too much, and it's not as well worded as what I want it to be. And so I'm going to give it to that, and we're going to ask it to refine it and maybe come across a little bit different than what it's presented here. A fantastic anchor story, raw, insightful, and deeply relatable. You're not giving a look on how many people came, a victory lap. You're showing a growth moment, a very real shift from intimacy to scale, from clarity to a little chaos. And then 4, webinar recap. Tell me a little bit about the actual webinar. Gonna dictate again. The webinar was on how to use AI, the basics. The tools that we used was ChatGPT, and we were just teaching how to create a prompt. 2 or 3 of the most important takeaway moments was the ability to use AI to create the prompt, as well as that it could do things in the spiritual mapping world that we hadn't really done before. It was able to pull out key components about spiritual mapping, about the nations, about different things, and it had great insight on that topic. So I'm going to go ahead and give it that. Answer. You've got a clear beginning, friendly focus, a surprising spiritual insight, a real-time discovery moment. Next up is the tool spotlight, ChatGPT study mode. And for this one, I want it to pull a little bit from the news or from a story of its own. So I'm going to ask it for more information than asking me, because it's a tool within the world. And so this would be the same if you were going for news events, or if you were part of something that happened locally or globally. You can, instead of just pulling from your memory, you can ask it, give me a little bit more information on this. And so I'm going to do that now. Help me understand a little bit more about study mode, and put in a little paragraph about what's the difference between study mode versus just a regular ChatGPT conversation. So I give it that prompt. And so it says regular ChatGPT conversation. This is typically back and forth with AI, one thread, one direction. It remembers what you say in the chat, but everything is in a single flow conversation. It's great for brainstorming, casual exploration, or drafting something. Study mode creates a structured learning space. Instead of just chatting, you upload or paste in a document like an article, book, or transcript, and ChatGPT breaks it into digestible sections. You can highlight, ask questions about specific parts, create flashcards, and test yourselves as you go through it. It's like having a tutor, note taker, and quiz each coach in one. Paragraph for your newsletter. What is study mode and why you should care? ChatGPT recently rolled out something called study mode, and it might be one of the most helpful tools I've seen for anyone trying to learn deeply and remember more. Unlike a normal chat, study mode turns any document like a sermon, a chapter, a book, or newsletter into a learning experience. You can highlight key ideas and questions about specific sections, generate flashcards, and even quiz yourself if you ever wish for an AI that could walk you through something instead of just answering the question. And if you're wondering, that tool is right here in study mode. So if you click on tools, you can look at study mode. All right. I think that's a great paragraph to include in the newsletter. So I'm going to go ahead and dictate, to add that paragraph as part of the newsletter and continue asking me questions. That is a great paragraph. What is study mode and why you should care? Include that as part of my newsletter. And let's continue to the creation part of the newsletter. I'm going to jump to start creating it, but you can keep going through all of the other questions, or you can keep going through more information until you feel like it has enough context. If you go on to the writing part of the newsletter and it doesn't give you enough information, or it starts taking too much leeway, it means that you haven't given it enough context. And so that is the balance that you need to go back and forth of giving it enough context and then also figuring out where the time is to take it on to actually creating it. So right here it says we've got your tone, your story, your audience, and your insight, and lined up like a stones across river. Let's start stitching together the actual newsletter now. Here's a first full draft, blending your voice, content, and tone. Newsletter draft, not behind, just getting started. Subject line, a big shift, a new tool, and a gentle reminder you might need today. Preview text, 10 people showed up to my last webinar, but that's not what surprised me. Also a powerful new ChatGPT feature you'll want to try. So this is when you're using different tools, like different email tools, which we can go into. Write in the comment if you have a specific tool that you want me to go into, like MailChimp or whatnot. And you can create a subject line. And then after that, you add the preview text. And so it's giving you these two things to fill in that template that you would do. And then here's the actual draft. What I learned from teaching more people than ever before. A few weeks ago, I led a webinar on the basics of using AI. And for the first time, we had over 10 people attend. That might not sound huge, but for me, it marked a real shift. I'd gotten used to the intimacy of 2 or 3 people. When it's small, you hear everything. You can read the room, you get direct feedback. But in a larger group, it gets quieter. It's hard to tell what people were thinking. I could pivot based on examples they wanted or questions they had. And honestly, that made me a little tentative. I didn't show up as strong as I wanted to, but that's exactly what showed me where I needed to grow. If you've ever stepped into a new space, scaling up, trying something bigger, you know the feeling. It's humbling, it's clarifying, and it's holy ground of growth. What we actually covered and why it blew people's minds. The webinar itself was focused on basics for prompting in ChatGPT, but what surprised people the most was how we started to use it for spiritual mapping. Yes, spiritual mapping. We saw ChatGPT surface insights about nations, patterns in scripture, and dynamic in spiritual landscape that sparked some of the deep conversation. And for all the basic tools, it reminded me that the tech isn't just efficient, it can be insightful when we learn how to guide it. What's study mode and why should I care? ChatGPT recently rolled out something called study mode, and it might be one of the most helpful tools, and we read that paragraph already. And then here is a little, among college age users, about 1 in 3 users ChatGPT, and roughly a quarter of their chats are for learning or homework. Study related, use it to absolutely a core function for the group. And then it has a little devotional thought. If you're feeling behind when it comes to tech, outreach, or creativity, I just want to say you're not behind, you're just getting started. Growth insight isn't always loud. Breakthrough doesn't always come with clarity. First, sometimes it comes with confusion or trying something new. But God honors the steps you take, even in the wobbly ones. Want to catch the reply or try study mode? Watch the webinar replay. Try study mode. Let's stay connected. If you got some question stories or just, hey, what part, reply to this email, Joshua. And so here you can see how it took those different components, the webinar update, what we covered in the webinar, and what study mode was, a little devotional thought. And so I'm going to ask it to add a Bible verse into that, because give me a list of Bible verses to be able to include in the devotional. Can you give me a list of Bible verses that I might want to include in the devotional part of the newsletter? So here it's going to give me a few verses. So it gave me Zechariah 4:10. Do not despise the small things, small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to those work beginnings. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promises, as some understand as slowness. Instead, he is patient with you. 2 Peter 3:9. I think I'm going to take that one. God's timing is different and perfect. Can you include God's timing is different and perfect, 2 Peter 3:9 in this newsletter? So here's the thought. If you're feeling behind, growing isn't always loud. Breakthrough doesn't always come with clarity. First, sometimes it comes with confusion. add that, and then give me the whole newsletter that we just created. So I go ahead and ask it to newsletter. So as you can see here, it's created the whole newsletter, the subject line. If you don't like the subject line, you can ask it to give you 10 different subject lines and work through it. If you don't like preview text, the same thing. With any of these components that you have, you can go through and edit them either by asking it conversations here or going into edit in Canvas mode and just directly typing in what it is that you want. And so a few weeks ago, I led a webinar. One of the things that will be noted, most anybody that uses AI will know if you are not editing at all and don't want to do any of the work, that's fine. But if you do, one of the things as you're reading through is to take out any of these M dashes, those little lines, to be able, because those are a clear indicator that AI was involved in writing. And so I go through and I edit out all the M dashes because they don't really add anything to the message. They're just components of how ChatGPT thinks. And so then I can go through and edit any part. I can delete any section. I can ask it a question on editing a part of the newsletter. Let's see if there's something that I want to edit. Might add a section to the we actually covered. Can you add 3 bullet points to what we actually covered section about spiritual formation and mapping? And so I misset that, so I'm going to delete this about spiritual mapping. So I want to add those bullet points into the section. And so as you can see here, because we're in Canvas mode, it's going to go through and edit just the section that we asked, and it added it into bullet points. How can ChatGPT express spiritual themes across multiple regions? And so it changed it from being just a paragraph to bullet points. And I like that a lot better. So then as I continue to read through the whole thing, webinar itself focused, I just go through, edit any parts of it that I want and take out whatever sections I don't like. And I can continue to have this back and forth conversation with ChatGPT about each of the sections. And then here, this section where it says watch the webinar replay, there is no webinar replay, so I can just take that out of this here. Try study mode. Let's stay connected. Reply to this email. And so then I can copy and paste this into MailChimp or into another email format to send it. I'm going to go ahead and hit the copy. I'm going to hit the X so that it saves it. So this is the newsletter it saved. Here's an example of how I take a rough draft or some ideas and I have AI help me to then create a final newsletter. If you have any other questions, put them in the comments. If you'd like me to go through how to upload this to any particular application, or if there's any specific use that you aren't able to get, let me know so that I can create another tutorial to help you understand that particular aspect better. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a wonderful afternoon.